Hello, welcome back to Histamine Health Coach. I'm Teresa Christensen, and I help women live well with histamine intolerance. Today, we're talking about prebiotics, probiotics, and postbiotics, what they are, how they differ, and where they may fit when you're living with histamine intolerance. This topic became especially relevant to me when I started making my own yogurt. I use a lactose-free yogurt as a starter, add it to the protein whole milk, and let the yogurt setting on my steam oven do the rest. The first batch was a little bit intimidating because I wasn't completely sure what I was doing, but it worked, and it worked so well that homemade yogurt is now part of my normal routine. I decided to try making yogurt after a recent health issue that led to my NAION diagnosis. During that time, I had to take steroids and an antibiotic, so I contacted my functional medicine practitioner for support, and he recommended a 14-day belly reset, followed by probiotics to support my belly after the medications. If you're curious about the products my practitioner recommended, I'll include a link to the Wellness Boosters page of my website in the show notes. I'm sharing what I used as part of my own experience, not suggesting that the same products are right for everyone. Since I was already thinking about ways to support my belly, I decided homemade yogurt was also worth trying, especially because yogurt is one fermented food I can tolerate in reasonable amounts. But before we go any further, I want to be clear that I'm a functional medicine certified health coach, not a physician or a licensed medical practitioner, and this episode is for educational purposes only. It is not intending to diagnose or treat a medical condition or tell you which supplements you should take. If you have a medical condition, take prescription medications, have a compromised immune system, or you're dealing with a persistent digestive symptom, talk with your physician or another qualified medical practitioner before beginning a probiotic or any other supplement. Now, with that said, let's try to make sense of prebiotics, probiotics, postbiotics, and something called symbiotics, and how they may fit into a life with histamine intolerance. In functional medicine, you may hear about the 5R approach to digestive health. The 5 R's are remove, replace, reinoculate, repair, and rebalance. Remove means identifying and reducing the things that may be contributing to disruption. That can include foods that you're sensitive to, irritating ingredients, an infection, or another trigger specific to your body. Replace means supporting what may be missing or not working well during digestion. Depending on the person, that might include nutrients, digestive enzymes, or other targeted support recommended by a qualified practitioner. Reinoculation means supporting a healthier community of microorganisms through probiotics and the prebiotic foods that help feed them. Repair focuses on supporting the intestinal linings and creating the condition it needs to function well. Rebalance brings us back to the modifiable lifestyle factors I'm usually talking about: food, movement, sleep, stress, and relationships. A probiotic fits into only one part of that process. It may be a useful tool, but you don't want the tool to become the entire plan. That is important because when we hear that health begins in the belly, it can be tempting to go directly to the supplement aisle and buy the biggest bottle of probiotics we can find. But probiotics are not all the same, and more is not automatically better, especially when you have histamine intolerance. So let's begin at looking at one of the most common times when someone considers taking a probiotic. That would be during or after taking an antibiotic. Now, antibiotics can be life-saving and sometimes absolutely necessary, but they can also disrupt the balance and diversity of the microorganisms living in the digestive tract. Some people notice diarrhea, constipation, bloating, or other digestive changes during or after treatment. But that doesn't mean one round of antibiotics completely destroyed all your good bacteria. The microbiome is much more complicated and resilient than that. But antibiotics can disturb it, and the effects may last longer for some people than for others. Certain probiotic strains have been studied for reducing the risk of antibiotic-associated diarrhea. However, that does not mean every probiotic works for that purpose, and it should not mean we should automatically grab a random product from the pharmacy on the way home. The strain, the dose, the timing, the type of antibiotic, and the reason you're taking it, and your overall health can all matter. In my case, I didn't choose my probiotic because it had the most strains, the highest number of CFUs, or the most convincing advertising. My functional medicine practitioner recommended it after I'd taken an antibiotic along with steroids. There was a specific reason for using it at that particular time. And that doesn't mean the same probiotic would be the right product for you. It illustrates why the first question shouldn't be which probiotic is best. The better question is, why am I considering a probiotic and what am I trying to accomplish? So you may ask, what exactly is a probiotic? Well, a probiotic is a live microorganism that provides a demonstrated health benefit when taken in an adequate amount. Now bear with me here. You may see names such as lactobacillus, bifidobacterium, or Saccharomyces on a label. I did it. I can't believe I got through those names. These names may be followed by a species and then a series of numbers or letters identifying the particular strain. That strain is not a minor detail. So think about my dogs. I have Martini and Rachel Green. They are both Maltese. They are the same breed, live in the same house, and are raised by the same people. I assure you they are not the same dog. Microorganisms from the same general family or even the same species do not necessarily behave in exactly the same way either. This becomes particularly important with histamine intolerance because you may have seen lists online labeling certain probiotic species as histamine-producing and others as histamine-lowering. Those lists make probiotic shopping feel wonderfully simple. Unfortunately, the science is not quite as cooperative. Some microorganisms can produce histamine or other biogenetic amines. Others may help break them down or influence the intestinal environment in different ways. But much of the information we have comes from laboratory research, animal studies, and research involving very specific strains. We cannot assume that every strain within a species will have the same effect, or that something observed in a laboratory will produce the same result in your body. At this point, there is not one probiotic supplement proven to treat histamine intolerance in everyone. So, when might someone consider a probiotic? Well, antibiotic use is one possible reason, but it's not the only one. A qualified practitioner may recommend a particular probiotic for a specific kind of diarrhea, constipation, irritable bowel symptoms, or other diagnosed digestive concerns. Someone may also consider one after a gastrointestinal illness or during a period when a normal digestion has noticeably changed. But the reason should be more specific than, I heard probiotics are good for you. If constipation is the problem, you would want a product and strain that has been studied for constipation. A probiotic studied for antibiotic-associated diarrhea may not be the appropriate choice. If you're experiencing new diarrhea, severe belly pain, blood in your stools, or unexplained weight loss, you need to understand why. A probiotic should not be used to cover up symptoms that need medical attention. If you feel well, have regular bowel movements, eat a varied diet, and tolerate a range of plant foods, you may not even need a daily probiotic supplement at all. And if you begin a probiotic and develop flushing, itching, headaches, increased anxiety, diarrhea, or significant bloating, please don't assume it is die-off. And feeling worse proves the product is working. Your body is giving you information. Please pay attention to it. So how do you choose a probiotic? If you and your practitioner decide a probiotic is worth trying, begin with the reason you're taking it. Look for a product that lists the complete names of the microorganisms, including the strains, not simply a proprietary probiotic blend. Then look for evidence connecting those particular strains with the result you are hoping to achieve. More strains are not automatically better. More CFUs and colony-forming units are not automatically better either. 50 billion organisms printed in large gold letters across the front of a bottle may be impressive marketing, but it does not tell you whether the product is right for your needs. Look at the other ingredients too. Some probiotic supplements include inulin, chicory root, or other prebiotic fiber. Those ingredients may be helpful for some people, but they may cause gas, bloating, or discomfort for others. If you react to a probiotic supplement, the live microorganisms may not be the only possible cause. You may be reacting to an added fiber, flavoring, sweetener, capsule ingredient, or filler. Check the expiration date also and the storage instructions. Some products require refrigeration, while others are designed to remain stable at room temperature. Ideally, the label should guarantee its number of live organisms through the expiration date, rather than only at the time it was manufactured. Whenever possible, choose a product that has been independently tested for quality. Supplements are not evaluated in exactly the same way prescription medications are, and the contents do not always match what we imagine we are buying. Most importantly, introduce only one change at a time. If you begin a new probiotic, a prebiotic powder, digestive enzymes, and 3 different fermented foods on Monday, and you have a migraine by Wednesday, you will have no idea which change mattered. Okay, so what is a symbiotic? A symbiotic combines live microorganisms with a component intended to support the microorganisms or the existing microbiome. In other words, it brings probiotics and prebiotics together in one product. That sounds like an ideal combination, but the same rules still apply. A combination product should have a clear purpose, and it still needs to be something your body tolerates. The word symbiotic on the bottle doesn't automatically make the product appropriate for histamine intolerance or appropriate for every person. And this is where we look at foods like yogurt, sauerkraut, and pickles. Supplements are not the only possible source of live microorganisms. Yogurt, kefir, sauerkraut, kimchi, and traditionally fermented pickles may contain live cultures. But fermented does not automatically mean probiotic. For a microorganism to be considered a probiotic, it needs to be alive in an adequate amount and have a demonstrated health benefit. Some fermented foods contain live microorganisms but have not been studied well enough to make a specific probiotic claim. Other fermented foods no longer contain live cultures because they've been heated, pasteurized, or processed. And the regular pickles made with vinegar that we find on most grocery store shelves are not necessarily the same as traditionally fermented pickles. Vinegar gives them the sour flavor, but they do not automatically provide live cultures. Histamine intolerance gives us another complication. Histamine and other biogenetic amines can accumulate during fermentation. The amount can vary depending on the ingredients, microorganisms, preparation, temperature, length of fermentation, and storage. This does not mean that every woman with histamine intolerance must avoid every fermented food indefinitely. I tolerate yogurt in reasonable amounts. Another woman may be able to eat sauerkraut without problem. Someone else may flush, itch, develop a headache, or have belly pain after only a few bites. Your tolerance matters more than the list you found on the internet. If you want to experiment with a fermented food, choose one food at a time and begin with a small amount. Try it during a relatively calm period, not in the middle of a flare while you're traveling or immediately after making several other changes. You do not get extra credit for forcing yourself to eat sauerkraut when your body clearly dislikes it and doesn't want it. I've talked more about my own experience in my blog, Can I Eat Yogurt If I Have Histamine Intolerance? I'll include a link to that in the show notes as well. The short answer is that yogurt may contain helpful live cultures, but because it's fermented, individual tolerance still matters. Prebiotics feed the microorganisms already there and are different from probiotics. Probiotics introduce specific live microorganisms. Prebiotics are substances used by certain microorganisms already living in the digestive tract in a way that produce a health benefit. Many prebiotics are types of fiber. Food sources may include garlic, onions, asparagus, oats, legumes, and resistant starch found in foods such as cooked and cooled potatoes or rice. Several of these foods can be reasonable from a histamine perspective or still cause gas and bloating, especially if you add a large amount after eating a very limited diet. That reaction does not automatically mean the food raised your histamine. It may be related to the amount of fiber, the type of carbohydrate, fermentation in the belly, or simply eating more than your digestive system can comfortably handle at one time. This is why I prefer gradually increasing food variety over suddenly adding a large scoop of prebiotic powder. Begin with foods you already tolerate. Increase the amount gradually. Notice what happens to your belly and your bowel movements. Feeding the microbiome may be important, but we shouldn't create complete digestive chaos in the process. And then there are postbiotics. Postbiotics are probably the least familiar member of the group. A postbiotic is a preparation of non-living microorganisms, their components, or both that have been shown to provide a health benefit. In plain language, the microorganisms are no longer alive, but parts of them may still interact with the intestinal barrier or immune system in useful ways. Postbiotics are sometimes described as anything beneficial produced by bacteria, but that definition is too broad. A true postbiotic product contains inactivated microorganisms or their components and must provide a demonstrated health benefit. This category is interesting because postbiotics do not depend on live microorganisms surviving manufacturing, storage, and a trip through the digestive tract. They may eventually provide another useful option for people who do not tolerate live probiotics. But postbiotic is also becoming a popular word on supplement labels, and a popular word is not the same thing as a proven reason to buy something. We don't currently have enough clinical evidence to say that a postbiotic supplement treats histamine intolerance. Supporting the microbiome is bigger than a supplement. A probiotic may be useful. I take one myself. I don't just want the probiotic to become the entire plan. The microorganisms in your digestive tract are also influenced by the foods we eat, the variety of foods you tolerate, hydration, bowel movements, sleep, medication, illness, and stress. Stress deserves more attention here than it usually gets. The brain and digestive system are constantly communicating. If you eat every meal while frightened that the food will cause a reaction, your nervous system is part of the digestive experience. That does not mean your symptoms are all in your head. It means digestion is a whole body process. For someone who has restricted her diet to only a few foods, I can confirm that supporting the microbiome may begin with cautiously rebuilding food variety, not adding the strongest probiotics you can find. For someone recovering after antibiotics, it may mean discussing a targeted probiotic with a qualified practitioner while also eating the food she tolerates, staying hydrated, getting enough sleep, and slowly returning to her usual routine. For someone who tolerates yogurt, a small serving may be a practical addition. For someone who reacts to fermented foods, supporting her belly may need to look completely different. The question is not simply what is the best probiotic. The better question is what am I trying to accomplish and what kind of support makes sense for my body right now. Prebiotics feed selected microorganisms already living in the digestive tract. Probiotics introduce specific live organisms with demonstrated benefits. Symbiotics combine probiotics and prebiotic support, and postbiotics contain non-living microorganisms and their components. All of them may have a place in supporting belly health, but they are not interchangeable, and none is automatically right for every person with histamine intolerance. Start with a reason, look at the complete product, introduce one change at a time, and remember that the loudest promise on the front of the bottle is not nearly as important as what your body tells you after you take it. Thank you for listening today. If you're looking for more resources to help you live well with histamine intolerance, visit histaminehealthcoach.com. And if you have a question, a comment, or need help sorting through your own experience with histamine intolerance, you can email me directly at teresa@histaminehealthcoach.com. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind to yourself, and keep listening to your body. Have a great day.